You all. We're going to go through the assignments for the upcoming week, which is simply going to be you finalizing the final draft of your first essay, right? There are several things that I'm going to go over as we do this, so just kind of dig in and let's get started, right? The first thing that I want to go and take a look at is the syllabus for this week. Originally, we were going to do a peer editing practice, but there were a few students who expressed some concern about being able to link up with the other students. So instead of making that something that we would do, I decided to just do an individual peer editing practice so that everyone has equal opportunity to engage in the process, right? So if you'll notice on the syllabus, it tells you for week 5, you are going to complete all readings and watch all videos on revision in the week 5 content folder, right? So basically just go step by step in that week 5 content folder, click on the first thing, and then kind of go through and see what is there. If we take a look at that particular folder, it has one tab. It says revising essay number 1. When you click on it, you're going to go through each of these steps. The first step is going to be how to create a title for your paper, right? That's a pretty easy process to delve into. If you follow the PowerPoint slides and do what it says on each slide, it should get you to a really good working title for your paper. The next thing then you want to do is go back and look at the introduction, and then look at your hook, and then look at part 1, part 2, then evaluating your thesis. And then you're going to move to the body paragraphs and then the videos on conclusion. And what you're doing is basically revising and editing and making sure that each of your different parts of your essay fit the specifications that are outlined in that video. Now, some of the information and suggestions from the video are more general. They're not specific to a visual analysis essay, but they are specific general rules that you would engage in when you are revising and editing, right? I'm going to go through a little something with you now just to help you shore up the parts of your essay from me looking at your rough drafts, just looking at some weaknesses that may be there. I'm going to go over a few things that I hope will be helpful for you. And I'm also probably going to put 2 or 3 other resources inside that week 5 content folder. And it'll just be some websites on showing you how to write about ethos and pathos and logos, because those are the basic weaknesses that I'm seeing in your rough drafts, right? This is the sample essay that I put in the week 4 folder. And with this sample essay, I want to go through it because this essay is not indicative of an exemplars, all right? An exemplars would be an essay that is totally correct and it is a good example of what you should have. For an exemplar, right? If you're trying to see exactly what you need to do, I'm going to direct you back to the week 4 folder. And I'm going to tell you to look at the sample paragraphs that I gave you. I gave you an ethos body paragraph sample. This is what your paper should look like as far as your paragraphs on ethos, pathos, and logos. This example that's coming up here, the one that's in this document, this is an exemplar's example of what your paragraph should look like. Like if you're trying to find, I really want to know exactly what I'm supposed to do, it should look like this, right? This one here. This example that's here is a student sample. So I tried to give you a variety of paragraphs that have been written so that you can see one that's not so good and you can see one that is exactly the way that it should be done, right? So if you are looking for the way that it should be done without flaw, with very few flaws, you're going to look at this student sample here. If you're just getting an idea of some of the pitfalls that students fall into, then you're going to take a look at this essay here. And I'm going to sort of go through the parts of this essay that this student has that have weaknesses that I want you guys to try to avoid for your own paper, right? The first thing is going to be, this essay should follow a specific format outlined in the assignment that I gave you. There's an outline. Your first paragraph should be an intro. Your second paragraph should be a description. Your third paragraph should be audience. Then you should have a paragraph on ethos, pathos, and logos, and then a conclusion. Okay? That is what the structure of your essay should look like. That is what I expect to see. I do not expect to see anything other than that outline, right? So if I take a look at this student's paper, she has an intro. At the end of that intro, she has a thesis here, right? Then this paragraph, she starts to describe the actual visual. That's fine. But this paper does something that's a little bit different when she gets here. So when she starts here, what I should see is a paragraph on audience and only audience. Doesn't matter if the paragraph is short. Doesn't matter if the length of the paragraph does not matter, right? But I should have one paragraph that solely focuses on who this student believes the audience for this visual is. Instead, what this student does is they start to examine the use of logos, and then they try to couple it with discussing the audience. Do not do that. You should have a paragraph on audience, and then you should have a separate paragraph on logos, right? So the first mistake of this paper is going to be in the structure. The student is basically missing the paragraph on audience. It's just not there. What he or she tries to do then is to write a paragraph on logos. However, looking at this topic sentence here, and if you look at the information that was given here on what your topic sentence should do, the topic sentence should make a claim, right? It should make a claim that supports the thesis. This topic sentence does not make a claim that supports the thesis. This is a very weak topic sentence, all right? It starts off promising. The visual uses logos to do what? To captivate the audience it's targeted at, right? That is not a claim that supports her thesis. First of all, what elements does the logos use in order to make a particular claim? This student should make a claim about what the logical, reasonable argument is in the photo, right? You could say something like the visual uses logos to reiterate the fact that the environment is in trouble. That's a claim. The environment is in trouble, and this ad uses logos in order to reveal that claim, right? This visual is making the claim that the environment is in trouble, okay? So the student doesn't really have a claim in this topic sentence, right? But that is one way that she could correct it, by actually making a claim and showing me how the visual uses logos. The visual then uses logos through the use of text, right? The text that's in the picture. But this student doesn't talk about that. Instead, this student focuses on the services offered by the WW Fund. And she talks about them having dependable and consistent source of assistance for local communities, and that they provide an intriguing fact and explain why it's necessary for everyone to have fresh water. And then they talk about the advertiser. This is what I would call fluff. This student is including this information in this paragraph in order to take up space, because she has to meet the 1,250 word count. and she doesn't know what she's doing. So she's providing fluffy information in order to meet her word count. Because what she should be doing is analyzing the photo. Your paragraph on logos, pathos, and ethos should solely focus on the evidence that you see in the photo. It should not focus on outside sources, what someone else has said. It should not focus on anything that you got off the internet or anything that you researched. You should be looking at this photo and thinking, how does this photo make a reasonable or logical argument about the environment? Okay. Now, whatever reasonable or logical argument you believe this photo is making, it does that through the use of either the objects that are in the photo, the text, the way the text is organized, the use of the font, the use of the colors. This is what your paragraph should be explaining. Your paragraph should simply focus on what's happening in the photo. What is the illustrator using? How is he putting the photo together? Why does he place the words at the top instead of the bottom? What impact does that have? How does that help make his argument stronger? That's what this paragraph should be about. In fact, that is what all 3 body paragraphs on ethos, pathos, and logos should discuss. They should not be discussing the topic. They should be discussing the photo and how the photo is arranged, what type of font is used, what type of colors are used, what type of objects, people, the way the people are spaced out in the photo, what's in the middle of the photo as opposed to the outer regions of the photo, and why, and how does arranging the photo in this place help create a logical, emotional, or ethical argument, right? So if we go to the next paragraph, this student says the ad also displays ethos as an indigenous lady is seen in the advertisement taking a sip of water from what looks like a natural spring water. Again, this topic sentence does not make a claim that supports the thesis. It attempts to make a claim, right? The ad displays ethos as an indigenous lady. Okay, so he's saying that the lady in the photo is used as a symbol of ethics. But I need you to explain to me how. What about this lady being used in the photo is helping to create an ethical argument, right? Instead of focusing on the lady, this student starts talking about indigenous societies and their ability to get sustenance from the land and the natural world around them. In exchange for this, they learn to respect and preserve these resources. This is an okay assumption to make, but he needs to talk about the lady being representative of those indigenous societies. And then he goes off and says, in contrast to the Western world, where people assume that goods should always be easily accessible, further depleting our resources while also taking them for granted. These ideas are not too far-fetched, but he hasn't found a way to connect them to the actual images in the photo. He's making assumptions about the Western world, but he can't prove any of that with what's being presented in the photo. He needs to stick to what you see in the photo. If ever you're trying to figure out what you should be writing on, go back to that. Stick to what you see in the photo and what the photo is doing, right? Anytime you're getting outside the photo, you're focusing more on the issue instead of how the photo is making an argument, right? He could have talked about, for ethics, this is where he could have pulled in the company, because the company, the World Wildlife Fund, that would be a time to actually talk about the reputation of the company and why the company's reputation is important to the message that this photo is sending, right? So he has some of these parts in his essay. It's just that they're not organized properly. And he's missing the opportunity to pull it all together, which shows me that he doesn't really understand the photo and he doesn't understand the argument that the photo is making, right? If we go down and look at the paragraph on pathos then. This is an emotional argument. He should be answering, how does this image make an emotional appeal to the audience that supports whatever this student said is the thesis, right? So I guess the first thing to do would be to go back and take a look at his thesis again. He says this visual wants you to recognize how important it is to value the natural waters and the earth, right? So he says that this photo is making an argument that we should value the natural waters and the earth, okay? So I need to know, how does this ad make an emotional appeal that says we need to value the natural waters that are on the earth, right? That's what I expect his paragraph to answer. He says the ad uses pathos as the purpose of the visual is to entice the audience in the world to feel the importance of keeping our waters clean. There are several ways we as humans can join all over the world. All right, this part here was fine until he got to this part. There are several ways. I don't need you to talk about, how to fix the problem that the visual is focused on. That's not your job in this essay. You're not to write about this topic, right? You are to write about the visual. So if the ad is using an emotional appeal to show the importance of keeping the waters clean, okay, so how does the ad make that emotional appeal? Is it in the use of the colors? Is it, in the text? Does the text that's used in the ad say something that creates an emotional sympathy, or that creates feelings of action, or that prompt you to want to get up and conserve water or preserve water, right? This is what the students needs to analyze. He continues, the advertising describes the kind of support and resources necessary to aid a country in getting fresh water. The ad has evidence that highlights the challenges that are now being encountered, and it's included in the publication. This, again, I don't know what he's talking about. It's just fluff. He's just trying to fill the word count. Don't do that. Please do not do that, right? He says they're in a precarious situation and in need of support as quickly as humanly. How does he know this? You can't know this from this photo, right? So again, he's talking about the issue instead of focusing on what the photo is doing, right? Maybe the emotional appeal is created by having the woman be in the center of the photo instead of off in the background. By placing her up to the front, you're able to feel the importance of how important this water is to preserving her way of life, right? And maybe putting her up in the center of the photo helps to create this sort of connection, one human being to another. Those are the types of things that he should be saying in this paragraph and not focusing on the situation. He starts again, when I look at this advertisement, first of all, you're not supposed to use I. Don't do that. Right? He says, I am filled with sadness and anger because it reminds me. No, there has to be something in the photo that evokes feelings of sadness and anger. Maybe it's the colors. Usually the color blue is associated with being calm. Yellow is associated with being sickly or dying. Are there hues of yellow? Red is a passionate hue. It evokes feelings of passion. So he needs to focus on what's in the photo that's causing this emotional appeal, right? Again, he starts going off on a tangent. As a nation, we should not take pleasure. Don't do those things. Please do not do that. That is not what I'm asking you to do. Eventually, though, he does get to it, right? And he starts here. The phase act now, right? The words that are used on the photo create this sort of reactionary emotion. When someone puts act now, the force of that statement is sort of commanding because it's telling you that you need to get up and do something. So then it evokes feelings of responsibility, making you feel that you are in part of the environment and it's up to you in order to participate in preserving water. By using that phrase, the photo is saying that you, the audience, you need to act. There is something you must do, right? This is what the students should be doing, right? And he says, shows that they need an emergency immediately, that if we do not take care of the environment or pure water, that everyone will be in danger. Now, this is what he's supposed to do. Then he goes on and talks about the use of orange being thought of as a cheerful hue because it evokes feelings of happiness, emotional power, and warmth. The advertisement employs this color of orange, and the lettering is strong and eye-catching and is intended to attract the attention of approaching cars. All right, so this part is exactly what he should be doing, right? But you'll notice that he filled this paragraph with a whole bunch of other fluffy stuff because he's trying to meet the word count, right? Again, it's very easy to spot when students are filling their papers with fluff to meet the word count. It's very obvious that you're not analyzing what's in the photo. Now you're talking about the issue instead of the photo. What I would caution you to do is to stick to the photo. Every explanation that you give should be about something that's used in the photo, okay? Again, I gave you a list of elements that you could look at for that photo. You could look at the type of text, where the text is placed in the photo, the colors of the text, how the colors of the text clash with the colors of the woman in the photo, the actual words that are being spoken. Like he says, act now is there. And he talks about the force of using that and how it evokes certain feelings, right? This essay here is about 1,488 words, but again, about 500 of those words are just fluff, right? When you are revising and editing your paragraphs, I want you to compare your paragraph to this one here, right? This is an exemplars. This is how your paragraph should look. You should notice when you look at this paragraph, there is no fluff in this paragraph. Everything in this paragraph is explaining why something that happens in the commercial connects to the reputation of this company. Remember, ethos is about reputation. Pathos is about emotions. Logos is about logic, what makes sense. It makes sense to have the woman smack dab in the middle of the photo, right? It makes sense to have water running because that's the focus of the ad, is preserving water. So the fact that they have the water in the center of the ad makes sense. It's logical to have it there, right? So you're just thinking about how the photo is making each of these three appeals. How does it make an ethical appeal? How does it make an emotional appeal? And how does it make a logical appeal? Okay. So this video is just to get you to go through and look at your essay and then consider your 3 body paragraphs. The other part of the revising and editing is going to take you through your paragraphs, and there's also going to be a document that gives you examples of different types of sentence structure. I want you to look at that sample document and then look at your essay. Make sure you varied your sentence structure, okay? Use different types of sentences: compound sentences, complex sentences, simple sentences, to revise your essay. Your essay is due October 1st. If you have any issues or problems with it, please send me an email, let me know. I'm trying to give you as many resources and examples that I possibly can to give you a good look at what the type of writing you should be producing. But again, whenever you're asked to write a particular essay, you have to do some research on your own. So if you're not out researching on your own how to write a visual analysis essay, you should be. Because everything that I give you in the content folders, Those are things to help you get started. But each of these essays that you're going to be asked to write this semester is going to require you to do some independent research, and you're going to have to go and find some examples and look at some sample visual analysis essays on your own as well, so that you'll have a good idea of what you're being asked to do. If you are trying to figure out how many paragraphs you should have, the structure of your essay, I've already given you that in the essay requirements assignment. You can find that in the content folder, I think for week 2. It's here, essay 1 requirements. If you look at that document will definitely show you how your paper should be organized, right? We've looked at that before in a previous video. If you need to go back to any of those other videos, please do so. I also am going to put in your module some websites on Ethos, Pathos, and Logos that you can go to, some last minute websites that you can go and take a look at, so that you can see how to analyze a visual for Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. I'll put those links in the week 5 folder, and you can go through and look at them. And I also want you to look at the revising and editing videos, and then revise and edit your paper as well. Okay, if you have any questions or issues, please email